Hi, I'm Femi, and you're in the stream. Today we're going to look back through the social media year of 2015. To do that, we're going to bring back some former stream guests, some newsmakers. And Malika, our digital producer, has a very specific way of reminding us of what happened this year. Malika?
Yeah, the way the stream does best. We'll be looking at 2015's biggest hashtags. Well, some of the criteria to make the list that our team's been looking at are number of mentions, where it started and where it spread, and of course, greatest impact. So with that being said, let's get started. Coming in at number 10, electric Yerevan. It was used more than 102,000 times in Armenia over rising electricity prices. Number 9 was Muslim Lives Matter. That started after the shooting deaths of 3 Muslim students in February in the U.S. state of North Carolina. It didn't gain the media attention people online felt it should have, so we saw images and commentary like this. Well, this hashtag was used more than 533,000 times. We'll keep checking in on this list throughout today's show, so stay tuned.
Now, climate change was big news in 2015, and earlier this month, the UN climate talks, COP21, wrapped up in Paris with historic agreements. Joining us from South Africa is climate change activist Kumi Naidoo. Kumi, great to have you here. So,
Thank you for having me.
The beginning of this year, would you ever have imagined that COP21 would have ended in this fashion?
Well, for many of us in the climate movement, we said it was never a road to Paris, that it was a road through Paris, in the sense that Paris was a moment where political leaders had a chance to show leadership, which has been lacking for so long. Like in Copenhagen 6 years ago, we were asking for what we called a fab deal on climate, not a fabulous deal, but a fair, ambitious, and binding deal. And we jokingly say, what we got in Paris was a flab deal, full of loopholes and bull. But in Paris, what we've got, and people must be very, very clear, that what we got in Paris was a lifeline, not a solution. What I mean by that is, the deal that we have gives us now a chance to fight to keep warming below 1.5 degrees, but there is much more activism and work that is needed to push our political leaders to actually transition off fossil fuels to an economy that's driven by oil, coal, and gas, and move to an economy that is 100% renewable energy driven by no later than 2050.
Wow.
So you Kumi, leave the fine print in the Paris Agreement, it's not as good as it sounds.
What you're saying, Kumi, is a lot of what we saw online, people using Twitter really to make their voices heard about how this was affecting them. I know you were in the Pacific Island states not too long ago, earlier this year. What did you hear from people and how important this would be?
Well, I think the voices of people in the Pacific and other small island states and least developed countries did actually have an impact, because what I heard people say, the thing that touched me the most was, whereas most of the developed country, including people in the environment movement and all, were getting comfortable with talking about 2 degrees of warming from the start of the industrial period.
Yeah.
But actually the slogan that people were chanting in the Pacific when I was there, in Vanuatu, in Kiribati, in Fiji and so on, was 1.5 to stay alive.
Yeah, Kumi, actually...
1.5 to stay alive.
We had the actual president of Kiribati on our show just a little while ago. Impressive person. I know you thought that too. Have a look here at my laptop. This is you with the president of Kiribati right here. Behind the scenes, what was the atmosphere like at COP21? It feels electric just looking at it.
We were working 24/7, not much sleep.
Yeah.
Because every day there was different countries trying to block progress on this or that area. And essentially, I have to say that even though overall developing countries got a bad deal when you look at the details, this was one time where the smallest countries on the planet said, folks, you have a choice to decide whether the lives of people in our countries matter or not. And if you simply say, cap it at 2 degrees, then what you are saying is that it's only the lives of people in Europe and North America and so on, which, by the way, will not be safe at 2 degrees, but will have a chance to survive.
See, Kumi, you sound, I hear optimism. I hear optimism in your voice. We're going to get back to that optimistic voice a little bit later in the programme, because we want to look ahead to the next year. So Kumi Naidoo, sit tight for now. Malika.
Well, this year, Femi, we also saw local movements grow from small campaigns to create big change. Take a look at this.
Well, another campaign for change was Yo tengo derecho a donar, or I have the right to donate in Ecuador. Organ donation was limited to spouses and blood relatives, but Daniela Peralta fought to change that to save her sister-in-law's life. We first spoke to her on the stream back in April, and she's joining us again from Quito with an update. So, hola, Daniela. It's great to have you here. Can I ask you? Hello, it's great to have you here. Daniela, how many kidneys do you have right now?
Unfortunately, I have two. I still have two.
Yeah, you should be down to one by now, for good reason, right?
I should have. Yes. Our authorization for her surgery with the action of protection from the law was done on April 26th, and we were supposed to have her surgery in May. But we have had some little problems with the hospital, the government.
What happened, Daniela? What happened?
Yeah, well, it's a whole lot of things. We have problems with the medicine. The medicine that we're receiving in our country right now is not the best medicine for to not reject the organ later.
Yeah.
So we have had that problem. Unfortunately, the country is going through a rough crisis situation right now.
Strikes and there's economic issues. So this idea about being able to give a kidney, donate a kidney to a non-blood relative, you brought up this whole head of steam, and then you just kind of stopped.
Exactly.
That's so frustrating. Look here, I want to show people what you did in a week. This is you with the former Minister of Health, and she invited you to her office a week after you started that hashtag campaign. A week.
Exactly. No, not even a week. Like 3 days.
Now you're showing off. Right, you're showing. But this is what happened to you. Ecuadorians tell President Rafael Correa, I have the right to donate. And then Ecuadorian Twitter went crazy. Look at all of this. This is so impressive. Malika, what do you make of this campaign?
Well, this is one of the shows that touched me the most because of what one person could do with the help of people online. So, Daniela, my question to you is, how has your life changed? Did it change at all after the show?
Yes, it has changed very much. I'm in more contact with people that have been through the same situation that we have been. And the most amazing thing and what has touched me the most is that people tell me that because of us, now they can say why cannot we do the same if you tell them yes.
Wow.
So that has really been really nice.
That's fantastic. Daniela, I mean this in a good way. The next time we check in with you, I'm hoping that you'll have one kidney and your sister-in-law will have the other one, okay?
Perfect, that would be great. That's what we're waiting for.
All right, keeping everything crossed. Malika.
And of course,
thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. And of course, for me, we're going to keep everyone posted on Daniela's story. But first, let's take a look at that countdown before we move on. Coming in at number 8 is hashtag 1MDB, which inspired the memes of 1MDB movies in Malaysia. Number 7 is Nepal earthquake. And number 6 is I Stand with Ahmed, used more than 1 million times around the world, even getting some recognition from big names. Another big thing in 2015 were social media campaigns for recognition and for women's rights. So here are some that we shared with our community.
Aos meus 60 anos, ainda na rua, pedindo pela legalização do aborto. Direito ao nosso corpo. Eu não tenho esse tipo de problema, mas minhas netas terão, né? Então tem que ficar na luta.
Now, one man who fought for recognition of his community and won is Jim Obergefell. He was one of the plaintiffs in the Supreme Court case in the United States that legally recognised gay marriage. In Europe, gay marriage was also big news after it was recognised in Ireland in May. Jim joins us now. You just really want to say just marriage, right, Jim? Not gay marriage. When do you think we'll stop saying gay marriage?
I think it's going to take some time,
Yeah.
but this year I've seen a change in that. Even for me, saying marriage was something new. It took time for me to actually feel comfortable just saying my husband and marriage.
Yeah. So this is a bittersweet story for you, an amazing year for marriage equality, a sad year for you personally because your husband wasn't around to see this. Do you want to fill us in on that story for those of us who don't know what happened to you and your spouse?
John and I were together almost 20 years, or actually over 20 years in 2013 when the Supreme Court struck down part of the Defense of Marriage Act. And we married within a couple weeks of that decision. And John was dying of ALS at the time. He was actually at home, bedridden in hospice care because of ALS. So we got married and had no plan to do anything. We just wanted to get married and call each other husband.
Yeah.
And then we were introduced to a civil rights attorney who had this idea, and we decided to file suit against the state of Ohio. And we won.
Jim, that is so huge. Did you not sort of hesitate a little bit, or was your personal circumstances, was that the thing that made you an activist?
That's absolutely what turned me into an activist. John and I were never activists. And I think back to that conversation with Al, our attorney, and surprisingly enough, it was a very easy decision to make, to say, you know, this isn't right, this isn't fair. Our marriage, our relationship deserves just as much dignity and respect as any other. So it was a very easy thing to do. And we won our very first ruling in July of 2013. And John died 3 months later, but he died knowing that his death certificate would be accurate and would say he was married and would list me as his surviving spouse.
And Jim, of course, you weren't the only ones who won. This is, as Femi mentioned a little bit earlier, we were seeing tweets like this. This is out of Ireland from Daithí, who says they were part of the campaign there to bring equality and marriage equality in Ireland. So when you look back over this past year and you see what happened in Ireland, you see what happened in the US, how does that color your lens of where we're going to go next?
Oh, it's so exciting, you know, to see Ireland pass that by referendum, by popular vote. That just gives me hope on top of the hope that I've experienced because of our case and the changes I've seen here in the United States over the past couple of years. There's so much change happening, and for the positive, for the better, people realizing we're no different than anyone else. And we simply want those same things. We want to commit to that person we love, and we want that to be respected. And I think things will continue to improve in that. I think we're going to see more positive things happening around the world. Unfortunately, there will be backlash. You know, we're already seeing that. But it's also one of those things here in the United States, you know, because we now have the ability to marry.
I'm looking forward to more positivity. Thank you for that. I do want to stay here in the United States for our next hashtag, which is Black Lives Matter. Continued to grow in 2015. 2 years since it first began. It's been used more than 8 million times. Take a look. And before we go any further, let's check in on our countdown. Refugees' welcome is at number 5 in reference to the ongoing crisis in Europe. According to the UN, more than 1 million have taken risky journeys seeking a better life. Number 4, the dress.
I remember the dress.
It had more than 3 million guessing. Was it white and gold or black and blue?
White and gold.
It was white and gold.
Yeah, I saw white and gold.
So did I.
Yeah. Obviously, we're right. Moving on, here on Al Jazeera, we follow the refugee crisis in Europe very closely, and some of the most iconic images of the year have come from that story. Al Jazeera correspondent Barnaby Phillips joins us now from London. Barnaby, this is a story that you've been following not just this year, but for a couple of years. What was the moment that really stood out for you this year, though?
Well, I think, yeah, you're right, Femi. It's been growing and growing, but this year things really just exploded in size across the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
A particularly moving moment for me, I think, was standing on a dock in the port of Agosta in Sicily back in April, and an Italian Navy boat unloaded its cargo, which it had picked up at sea, its human cargo. I think you're showing the video there. And seeing the varying reactions of the people they'd picked up, most of them on that boat happened to be Syrian, and seeing people collapse in relief as their feet hit dry land, and seeing so many children and so many very young babies and so many old people, it was just, there is nothing like being there to see to experience the human reality of this extraordinary migration that has gone on across the Mediterranean all year. More than 1 million people have crossed that stretch of water this year alone.
How do you keep telling the story over and over again, Barnaby? Are you having to work out, how do I connect again with our Al Jazeera audience? How do I show them another Syrian family? How do I tell them another desperate journey, as we're calling it on our Al Jazeera network? How do you do that?
Well, I think the story has so many facets, Femi, and it's happening in so many different countries, not just, of course, Syria, Turkey, Greece, Italy, the entrance points, if you like, but every European society. Germany, more than 1 million people have gone to Germany this year alone. It's an extraordinary social transformation. In Sweden, per capita, with a much smaller population, the transformation is even smaller. So you have busloads and trainloads of Syrians arriving in small towns not so far from the Arctic Circle. So every story of arrival and acceptance or rejection or fear or generosity is different in different communities across Europe. Of course, every country in Europe has its own politics. Hungary reacting in a very different way to Austria next door. Britain, where I'm based, reacting in a very different way to France. So it has remained, if I can speak in cynical journalistic terms, a very dynamic and engaging story throughout the year. It has never stood still. As the refugees has moved, the drama of the story has moved with it.
All right, Barnaby, we'll come back to you because I want to pick your brain for what you think might happen in 2016 with this story and some other stories as well. So sit tight, we'll be back with you in just a moment. Now, as our loyal streamers know, covering Asia for us is a little bit challenging. Our show airs live at 19:30 GMT, which is right in the middle of the night for many countries. So we really appreciate all of the guests that either stay up late, get up early, set the alarm to be live on the stream. Now, our next guest knows all about that. Kirsten Han is from Singapore. Hi, Kirsten. Good morning.
Hi.
Yeah, hi, good morning. It's great to have you back. Now, the story that we originally had you on the stream for was about a teenager, a teen blogger, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Amos.
Remind us about Amos.
Yes. So Amos had got in trouble shortly after the passing of our first Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, because he'd published this somewhat vulgar YouTube video criticizing Lee Kuan Yew, and he also criticized Christianity. So he was charged and found guilty of wounding religious feelings and also distributing obscene material. And he ended up in remand for quite some time and was ultimately released because the judge backdated his jail term. So
is he still in trouble?
He's in trouble again.
Oh, okay.
He's being investigated again for allegedly wounding religious feelings, this time against Islam, because he'd written a blog post and a Facebook post criticizing Islam.
Yeah.
The last I've heard, he's not cooperating with police investigations and is kind of on the run. So
oh my goodness.
He's kind of
wow.
The last post he wrote on his Facebook, he said that he'd been staying in a tent by the beach,
right,
and had just run off from the police. So we don't know where he is now, but he's not willing to cooperate with this investigation.
Oh my goodness. Kirsten, I'm going to come back to you because I want to pick your brain for what might happen for Singapore and also Southeast Asia coming up for the next year. So be thinking about that, thinking ahead. But in the meantime, I'm going to look around the world at some protests, and you can see some behind us. So our production team is saying, this is the year of protests. But that could have been last year, right?
Yeah, and 2013.
Year before that, year before that.
Exactly.
Okay, lots of protests happening around the world. People took to the streets and social media to fight for their rights, whether it was on university campuses or about basic services. Social media is alight right now, and some protests that started last year are still going on. Take a look.
What started out as peaceful protests in April against the bid for a third term by President Pierre Nkurunziza has evolved into armed violence.
So we managed to cover a number of those stories here on the stream, whether it was on our program or in our web content. But some we weren't able to do. Reasons could be anything from language, complicated logistics, or not being able to get a good enough internet connection for a Skype guest. It's pretty important to us.
Yep.
So here's a look at some issues we followed, but weren't able to cover in depth. Before we move on, let's take a look at hashtag number 3 of 2015, Black Lives Matter, which you saw earlier. And number 2, Pray for Paris, was used more than 10 million times after the November attacks. This hashtag had people all over the world tweeting their support for Paris, but also raising awareness about other violence that needed attention. Specifically, the number of mentions for the hashtag Pray for Lebanon jumped as support for Paris took off.
So, your favourite moment on the stream from 2015 was?
Not just mine, but it's in our beginning days. Anna Tijoux performing just right over there.
Was that like the second or third show in this brand new studio?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to tell you that we have a little stream crush on one of our guests. Malika said just one. Okay, yes, just one. He was the Man Booker Prize winner for this year, but he came on the show before he actually won the Man Booker Prize. So I feel like this appearance actually helped push him into being a winner. This is what he did when he sat down in the studio a few months ago. This is Marlon James.
Maybe it was the bass, something you can't see but feel, and who feels it know it. But a woman will talk to herself, let her tongue loose in her backyard, cursing with each ring of the shirt and pants she's washing, saying she's tired of the system and the ism and schism, and it's high time the big tree meet the small axe.
We're coming close to the end of today's show. Before we get there, the #1 hashtag of 2015, love wins. Is that what you guessed? It was used more than 12 million times. On the day of the judgment, June 26th, it was used more than 8 million times around the world.
All right, so in 30 seconds, guess what would you like for 2016? Daniela, your 2016 wish.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to continue helping my community. Like help more. Reach more people and to have more projects around South America.
Jim, looking ahead, what do you want?
I would love for the Equality Act to pass here in the United States and for anti-discrimination protections to become law around the country for the LGBTQ community.
Barnaby, quickly squeeze in there.
My hope, my wish for 2016 is peace in Syria after 5 wretched years of civil war.
One more thing to say. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for watching the stream this year. Take care.
I do love the stream because you've covered quite a wide range of social justice issues.
AJ's stream touched a lot of topics in Latin America.
You addressed and challenged common sense assumptions.
My favorite story of the year was the Syrian conflict.
And I would also like to commend the Aljazeera team for providing the opportunity for social media users to make positive contributions on critical issues.
And I look forward very much to 2016.